For this tutorial, we're working on a turban cap. I'm making use of the V-shaped pleated band. The turban base is going to be lined. I'm making use of raw silk fabric. You'll be needing 2 yards for this tutorial. And then we have the pleated frame, which is going to be padded with wording. Making use of light wording. You can also make use of your thick wording. And then there's going to be a loop at the side. So that's what makes it unique and different from other tutorials. Sorry, other pleated frame designs. And then you can try to either add a handle for tying or a loop at the back. Okay, so that's what makes up this design. So for the turban cap, I'll be using a different video to illustrate how to achieve the turban cap, and then as soon as that is done, we'll come back to work on the pleated frame design. Starting with the V-shaped band, you'll be needing 2 pieces of fabric for it, and I have both pieces of fabric here. The measurement is 15 inches by 14 inches. Cut out twice, 2 different pieces of fabric for the V-shaped band. So the stretchy part of the fabric is the length, and that is 15 inches, while the non-stretchy part of the fabric is the width, and that is 14 inches. Now, for the base, I also have 2 pieces of fabric here, and I'm using 26 inches by 14 inches, cut out twice, 26 inches by 14 inches. And after sewing, I will then go ahead to take the actual measurement for the head size that I'm working on. Please note that the 26 inches is for the head circumference, which is the length on the stretchy part of the fabric, and the 14 inches is for the width on the non-stretchy part of the fabric, and lining your fabric is optional. I have the first fabric for my V-shaped band here, so I'll start by folding in this edge. I'll fold it in twice, place it on my sewing machine, stitch it down, flip over to the other side, start splitting my fabric and sewing it down. I will do this until I get to the end, and after that I'll get back. And at this point, I'm done pleating both pieces of fabric. So this is how it looks like, and then this is what I get. To continue, I will get both of them and place one on the other in a V-shaped pattern as seen in the video. Then I'll get my pins to help me hold it in place so that I can get that V-shaped band on it. Thereafter, I will get the fabrics for my base. I will fold each fabric into 2 equal halves so as to enable me locate the middle, and then I'll go ahead to make a notch at the middle with my scissors, and also remember to do the same thing for the second piece of fabric. Right here, I have the first fabric for the base facing me. Please take note of the notched point. Then I'll get the fabric for my band. Fine side facing fine side, or place it on each other. I will also get the second fabric for the base. Please take note of the notch part. It should align with the other 2 fabrics. So I'm placing it together, fine side facing fine side, and I will stitch it down from one end to the other. At this point, I'm already done making my sewing stitch, so this is how it looks like, and then I'm flipping it over to the other side. I have the fine side this way. You can see the band neatly done. So I'll fold it into 2 equal halves again. This time I will be sewing it together, but before then I will get my measuring tape, and we're going to take measurement of the actual head circumference we are working with, because this particular turban cap does not have a handle. So let's assume I'm working with 10.5 or 11 inches. I'll just mark it, sew it down, curve down slightly, and then sew it down to the very end. So I want to take it again. Get your measuring tape, measure the exact head circumference that you are working on, and then sew it down from the band. Start sewing from the band all the way down to the end, and then you curve it down to the other end. And then at this junction, I'm done sewing. I've cut off my excess fabric as you see in the video. So the next thing we'll be doing is making that running stitch, and the running stitch is going to start immediately after the band down to the end. And then after making the running stitch, this is what we get. So please always remember you can always add the handle to yours. Now moving to the design. Now for the pleated frame and loop design, I have my fabric here. Now this is the full length of my fabric, which is always anywhere between 58 and 60 inches, and then for the width I'm having 28 inches. However, if you can get the width of your fabric up to 30 inches, it will be more preferable. Okay, so that is what I'm having. So it's a very long piece of fabric. It is 28 inches for the width, which is on the stretchy part of the fabric, by the full length of the fabric on fold. So let us assume it is 28 by 28 inches or 29 by 29 inches in two places. That is it. Now we are going to be padding this, and for the padding I'm going to be using wording. Now I'm making use of the light wording. You can as well decide to make use of the thick wording. There are two parts to your wording. There is the part that glitters, that shines. That's the part that has gum. While the other part is just like cotton. That part does not have gum. So set your fabric in place properly. If it's two pieces, if you cut out two different pieces, you have to iron on one piece. If it's on fold, you'll be placing your wording on one side, and then get your iron. Get your electric iron. Ensure it is hot, and then iron down the wording to your fabric. Okay, place the part that has the gum that shines on the wrong side of your fabric, and then iron it down to join together. After ironing it down, I'm going to now, this is the folded end, or if you are cutting two separate pieces, the 28 inches part, sew it to the end, and then come over to this other edge, sew down the 28 inches part again, sew it down this edge. So this part that you are sewing is the part that you are pleating. Then this open end is the part that is going to be having the handle. Or you are making your this part that is 28 inches, or if your fabric is up to 30 inches, it's on the stretchy part of the fabric. And then on this other part that is on fold is the non-stretchy part of the fabric. So the non-stretchy part of the fabric should be open for the handle. This part will be open, while this edge, that is the stretchy part, should be stitched, and the other edge should be stitched after ironing your wording to your fabric. So I'm going to do that and I'll get back. Now that we are done with this, I'm going to turn this over to the fine side. Okay, so and then I'll arrange my fabric in place and get back for us to continue. This is my fabric. This part was sewn down. I have this other edges open where I'll be having the handle, and because this edge was folded and I didn't sew it down again. But if yours is two different fabric, you have to sew it down. So having gotten this, we'll go ahead now to create our pleated frame. It's just the way we create our normal pleated frame. There's no much difference to it. Please note that the part that has your wording should be facing upwards. So this is it. I'll go ahead to secure it at the middle part. and then I'll go ahead to adjust my pleats to the end. And make sure it is well in place. Then I'll get a piece of fabric to also hold it in place at this point. Then come back to this end, extend my pleat, arrange my fabric, and also use a piece of fabric to hold it in place at this point. And as soon as I'm done, I'll get back for us to continue. If you look carefully, you'll see that I've gone ahead to make my pleats. Okay, I took my time to pleat my fabric to be able to get something this neat. Now, in place of your light wording, you can make use of your thick wording. My pleated frame is not so high because I'm making use of the light wording. Okay, so we're going to stitch this down to hold it in place before joining it, before placing it on the turban cap to join it together. At this point, I'm done tacking it all through. As I was stacking, I was placing it on my dummy head so I can get the perfect shape or the perfect fitting for it. Okay, so I have this, and then I also have my turban cap on my dummy head. Just position it properly. Okay, this is the middle of my cap. Get the middle of my pleated frame, which is this point, and then place it at the middle of my cap this way. Then I will go ahead to get the fitting for it. Now, if you look carefully at the design we're working on, the loop comes on one side. So you decide, is it your right side you want your loop to come, or is it your left side you want your loop to come? So I want the loop to be on this left part. So now that I have the middle part aligning with the middle part of my frame, aligning with the middle part of my turban cap, I'm going to start stacking. I'm going to join this together from this middle part down to the end of this right side. Okay, and then please watch this part of the cap as you are tacking towards the end. Okay, that is at this ear part, this ear loop. You are going to bring this part forward. Okay, you bring it forward this way and allow it to lap on the second pleat. Okay, to give it that gele look. So you tack it down, so you just keep tacking, and when you come start from the earlobe, you start slanting it down, and after this, at the end of the earlobe, this fabric should be on the second pleat right here. So that is how to go about tacking. So I'm going to tack from the midpoint down to the end, and then when we come back to the left side, we add the loop that is supposed to be at this point to give it that unique look. So I'm just going to carefully take this off my dummy head, because for me personally as an individual, I prefer, or it's much more easier for me to tack down off my dummy head than tacking with my dummy head. So I'm just going to start by passing my needle and thread from the wrong side of the cap to the uppermost part of the cap. Okay, now we're just joining the pleated frame down to the cap. It's just the normal way we do our joining. So at this point I have my dummy head. I've tacked it down to this edge. Okay, so let's come up to this point. At this point, just you can measure, you can also decide to use your eyes or your instincts to decide on where you want your loop to be. Okay, so let's say about 3 inches away from the midpoint. Let me just set this in place. 3 inches, the loop should start 3 inches away from the midpoint. So I just want to get my measuring tape. Okay, this is it. And then, okay, this is the midpoint right here. I have 5 inches. This is, and then this is 3 inches. So 3 inches is a bit close. Let's make it 5 inches. So at this point here, my loop is going to start down to wherever it ends. So that is how to go about it. Now I'm going to take this off my dummy head. Let me mark it slightly that this is my 5 inches mark, so I should be able to know. Then you see this point that we have the loop, we are going to stitch it down very tightly so that there is a dip here. So this part here that you're adding the loop fabric should be way smaller than this other parts here, should be tighter. Okay, so now that we are done with that, let's get the fabric for it. So for my fabric, I have 6 inches by 8 inches. 6 by 8 inches. I'll fold into two so that I have 3 by 8 and stitch down from one end to the other, then turn my fabric inside out. This is my fabric. I'm done sewing. I will turn this inside out this way. I have my cap here this way, and then I'm placing this on this part here. Okay, so the sewn part is at the middle. I'll get this up. Now you can take this down to your sewing machine or use your needle and thread and then stitch this part yourself, whichever one you prefer. So just stitch down this part and we're going to turn it to the other side. Another way to go is to get it, place it down like this way. So you see I've gotten the fitting for it, and then come to this edge, tack it however you want to tack it, because at the end of the day we're going to be tacking it down to the turban cap, or you arrange it in such that you can use your glue to glue it down, but this part should be very small, smaller than the sides. Then we'll tack it down to the turban cap. So whichever one it's okay for me, and I'm trying to use my needle and thread to sew it rather than sew on the sewing machine. So you see me pulling the fabric tightly because it has to be very tight. So this is it. Please try as much as possible to ensure that it's smooth. Okay, so I'll secure this and then cut off my excess thread, sorry, excess fabric, and then we'll go ahead to tack this down to the turban cap. Just as we did before, start joining it to the start joining the pleated frame to the cap. Position it in place pass your needle and thread from the wrong side of the cap to the top. Take it back in. Getting so close to this point. So I'm just passing it inside this way. I don't know if you can see that. See, now it's coming from the wrong side. And then take it in. See the way I'm passing my needle and thread inside so that I can stitch down that part there. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so guys, to complete this, and then don't forget to slant it when you come down to this edge. So at this point I've gotten very close to the end. This is it. So we have these two ends here. Like I said, we can get extra fabric for the handle or make use of a handle. I have 5 inches by 12 inches cut out twice, 2 different pieces of fabric. So what I will do is that I'll fold each piece of fabric into 2 equal halves and then sew it down from one end to the other end. I can also decide to trim off the edges a bit so that it can, it can stretch more. So at this point I'm done sewing. I'm gonna have to turn my fabric inside out. This is how it looks like. So I will start by folding in the edge of my fabric, okay, so as to hide that fraying edge. Then I will get my turban cap and pass in one end of the pleated frame inside the fabric. So that's how to go about it. So I'm just going to get my turban cap. This is one end of the pleated frame, and I'm going to pass this inside my fabric gradually. Okay, so I'm done passing it in. This is how it looks like. Then I'll get my needle and thread, and then we're going to start tacking this round. Okay, and please remember that whatever you are doing for this part of the handle should also be done for the second part. So I'll go off camera to complete that of the second handle, and then as soon as I'm done, I'll place it on my dummy head to show the final outlook. Please, while tacking, you want to ensure that the handle is very firm, because most clients will drag and drag and drag, so it doesn't come off while they are trying to make use of the headwear.